sound monitors, suppressors. People talk about that a lot lately. I've heard a lot of talk lately about suppressors, which is actually kind of encouraging. Although I don't believe for one second that this government's ever going to allow us to own sound suppressors, which are, for those of you that are unfamiliar with the term, some people use the term silencer. Synonymously with suppressor. It's not. Silencers, or the things that we call silencers, aren't in fact silent. What they do is they suppress the noise to the point where it's reduced to a level that it doesn't damage your hearing. I've been shooting for over 20 years. I know that my hearing's suffered as a result. Even if I put in plugs and wear a headset, it does deteriorate your hearing over time. Just the blast of guns going off around you will cause your hearing to deteriorate, and that's an issue that could be resolved with sound suppressors. And certainly all the other G20 countries have some form of legalized ownership. I mean, I can't understand how we have countries all over the world that have some form of legalized ownership of suppressors, and yet Canada does not. And the logic that prevents us from having it is that somehow, I guess, that we're going to have these super spies that are going to be, skulking around in the middle of the night, that are going to be silently killing people without anybody being aware of it, which is ridiculous. It's a lot of movie magic. I mean, if you've ever actually heard a suppressor on a firearm when it's in use, there is, an audible noise. Certainly with the larger calibers, it diminishes the muzzle report, but what it does is it just brings it down to the point where it's like a 9mm going off unsuppressed. So, I mean, it's reducing the sound levels to a safer point where you can shoot firearms without running the risk of damaging your hearing. And the idea that we would be denied access to something that is potentially sparing, a person's sense of hearing. I mean, I'd love to be able to keep my hearing. The moment that they legalize sound suppressors, I'm going to be the first guy in line to get one for a shotgun, one for a rifle, and one for a pistol. For those of you that haven't tried it, it's a ton of fun. I've traveled to the U.S. and I've been exposed to suppressor use. It's dirty, in terms of the amount of stuff that gets kicked up in your face. But I can tell you right now that it's much safer and more enjoyable way to shoot firearms, and it's something that's been around for a long time. Turn of the century. Mr. Maxim, the man who gave us the world famous machine gun, invented silencers or suppressors for use, and quite frankly, in many parts of the world, it's considered to be very ungentlemanlike to operate a firearm without the use of a suppressor. I mean, the noise pollution that's generated, by firearms being discharged could all be resolved. Those outdoor ranges where, you may have increasing population densities, in the areas surrounding these firearm ranges that have been there for, sometimes up to 50 and 60 years. They could reduce the sound levels to the point where, people wouldn't complain as much. So you'd be sparing people's hearing. You'd be reducing, noise pollution, which would be a wonderful thing, I'm sure, that the neighbors would like. It in no way, decreases public safety, in my opinion. They could be registered just like a firearm. You can trust me with a firearm, but you can't trust me with a suppressor. I think that should be some legal mechanism in place that allows us to use these items that are available and the rest of the civilized world has access to, and yet we don't. I don't believe that there's any documented case, even in the U.S., of a legitimately owned suppressor ever being used in a crime. So the idea that you trust me with all these guns, but you won't trust me with this device, which could potentially spare my hearing, and the burden of treating me, for going deaf as I get older, which is, it's going to present a bit of a strain on the economy if all these shooters show up one day saying I can't hear. The idea that we would be denied access to this essentially safety equipment as a result of propaganda or poor image connected to suppressors, or silencers, from people's mental image of James Bond shooting this ultra quiet silencer on a revolver. I mean, it's ridiculous. There's so much that is perpetuated by movie magic. Guns that never run out of ammo, that have to be loaded, once in a movie, and they're fired 100 times. I mean, I think if people had a better understanding of what firearms meant to people, how they actually operate, there might be a lot less fear that people would have in them. The idea that people would be in charge of making legislation that have never operated a firearm before or never been exposed to the firearm community or the good people in it is really disturbing. I like the idea of anybody that is going to be making legislation, it should be mandatory that they should shoot some firearms, that they should come out and meet the good people that are there at the range and understand the lives that they're going to have an impact on and the legislation that they're going to create. Perhaps if this committee would love to come out with me, they might feel safe and enjoy, firearms in a way that they might not get an opportunity to experience otherwise. They didn't bother to call me back. Whatever request I had made in an effort to put myself forward as a possible member on this committee that wasn't heard, I would still offer that if they would like to come out and see exactly what goes on at the range, that I would gladly take them out. I'm sure there's hundreds of people that would love to. I don't know that they would feel comfortable doing that. So perhaps if they couldn't find a place on that committee for me, perhaps they would be kind enough to join me for a day at the range. Love to take them out. Show them what we're all about. Show them the great people that are there. And how dependent some people are on the therapeutic value connected to firearms that you might not otherwise see, as an outsider. And that's really kind of the reason I started the Instagram page. Is I really wanted the public to have a look at what goes on in this world of firearms that is so incredible, and these people are so fantastic, and yet we are tucked out of the way and not talked about, it's a growing sport. I mean, there's more people now shooting guns and golfing, which I think is fantastic. We don't talk about it as much as our U.S. counterparts. We certainly don't have the Second Amendment to stand on. It's not one of those things that people openly discuss, in dialogue with people unless they feel comfortable enough. I mean, there's security issues connected to, speaking about your ownership of firearms. That I think it's really important that people understand that. It's not that we're keeping secrets from the world or that we're up to something nefarious. It's that we don't necessarily want to have our houses broken into, or we don't want to have to suffer through attempted entries into our homes, because there always will be people that will want to take those things. But everybody that I know takes the necessary steps to ensure that their homes are safeguarded, through alarm systems, through guard dogs, through safe doors, and through the necessary security measures. You can keep those guns safe in the house. But it's not, again, the thing that you kind of openly discuss with people. So it's really important that people understand that we're not up to something. We just don't broadcast it the way some people do.